Good.
Okay. Okay, we're live.
Well, good evening, everyone. What's today's date? March 8th. Good evening, everyone. Today is March 8th, Thursday, March 8th.
Good evening.
I just said good evening.
I can say it too.
You can say it too. Okay.
Yes.
You just like went all like good evening. All your good evening was all loud in your mind, like you was giving a message in tongues or something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Try it again.
I was speaking to the people and you just blurted out. Good evening.
Try it again.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Good evening.
Good evening.
There we go. Good evening.
You crazy.
What did I say? Today is Thursday, March 8th, 7 o'clock. We're here to do our Facebook Live. Good evening, Shelby. Thank you for joining us.
It's kind of weird.
What's your face? What you saying?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Hey, Shelby.
Hey, Dennis.
Hey, Dennis.
As we know, every Thursday we come on at 7 o'clock. We have this conversation talking about some of the various topics from our books from the Done Right series. In this particular month, we're going to be talking from our leadership book, Leadership Done Right is Hard Work, but it's Worth It. And as we did last week, we talked about one of the topics, and now we're going to talk about another topic. And for those of you who don't know, my name is Tony Davis. This beautiful lady to my left, I guess you're right on the screen, is my wife, Nicole Davis. We're your marriage and family mentors. And as we like to say every week, we like to discuss the how-tos of acquired knowledge. And thanks for sending those hearts, whoever sent those, the how-tos of acquired knowledge, because as we said, there's plenty of information out there. We all know how to get it, especially with the internet. But the real issue is how do we apply that knowledge that we've gained?
Yes.
And so what we talk about is some of the topics and really just help you understand how to apply that stuff and even help you look at it from a different perspective. Good evening, Pam. Thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you.
Hey,
Pam. And tonight we're going to talk about a topic actually from our leadership book. The book is Leadership Done Right. It's hard work, but it's worth it. You want to hold it up, babe, so they can see it?
Yes.
And even more specific, we're going to talk about the topic from day 26 in our book. And we actually put a different spin on it. But we want to call it being the leader over your mouth and how difficult is it to control what you say. And so I think as we've talked about it with each other, even in writing the book and even talking about it for this webinar, we think that there's a lot that can be gleaned and really just help you look at it from a different perspective. Those of you who may have already purchased the book, and we hope that you have, if you looked at day 26, you already know that there's a different spin that we put on looking at the topic of being a leader over your own mouth.
And we've been doing this for a few weeks now. So last month, because what we have is there are 3 books, and we call them the Done Right series. Did you talk about that at all as I was engrossed in this?
Oh, you weren't paying attention? No, okay.
Okay, you didn't?
I did not. I didn't talk about the other books.
The Done Right series. And we just showed you Leadership Done Right is Hard Work, but it's Worth It. There's also a Marriage Done Right is Hard Work, but it's worth it. And then Parenting Done Right is Hard Work, but it's worth it. And so all 3 of these books are now available. You can either get them on Amazon, or you can go to our website, which is empowertoengage.com. All of the books are there, as well as some other merchandise that we think you would absolutely love. But that's what we've been focusing on. So in January, we spent some time actually explaining and introducing how it is and why it is that we wrote each book. Last month, we had some nice conversations about marriage, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
And if you haven't seen any of those videos or any of the other leadership videos, or because this is the second week.
The second week of leadership.
The other leadership video, you can go and look on our Facebook page. All of the videos are there. And now we're also putting them on YouTube. So you can go and look up the videos there.
We meaning you and Josh. Because I haven't done anything with YouTube.
Yes,
but,
Josh. Thank you, Josh.
Okay, so as we discussed, let's say day 26. This is day 26 in the book, and I want to just go ahead and read the scripture that we use as the foundational scripture for this book. And we talk about being a leader and controlling your mouth, but as a matter of fact, in the book, the topic is actually practice controlling your mouth. And in Proverbs 17. Verses 27, 28 from the Amplified. I think is that your favorite version, Amplified?
It used to be. It kind of is.
So it is.
Yeah,
you know what?
Yeah.
We're trying to keep this to 30 minutes. So we're not going to go there. But anyway, I'll read it verbatim. It says, He who has knowledge restrains and is careful with his words. A man of understanding and wisdom has a cool spirit. And then in parentheses it says, self-control and even temper. And an even temper. Even a callous, arrogant fool, when he keeps silent, is considered wise, when he closes his lips, he is regarded as sensible, prudent, discreet, and a man of understanding. So here's what we understand, that what people are going to judge you by what you say. Mm-hmm. People, and that's just a fact. But the key here is, are you being prudent with the words that you use with yourself? You know, because I'm gonna tell you one of the things that I always find that really, I don't know if I want to say discouraging, but I would say even confusing to me. If you look at the kind of churches that we've associated ourselves with over the past, 25, 26 years or so, we've always been attracted to the kind of ministries where it's like, we're going to take it. We got, we're the head and not the tail.
The warrior mentality.
We're going to take dominion. We're dominant, and we're just going to fulfill purpose and destiny. And then every time we have these altar calls about people with low self-esteem, the altars are always packed. And that's always been confusing to me, because I was like, man, you got people who've been sitting up here for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And then when that type of altar call is brought forth, it's like they flood the altar. Now, granted, I'm glad they go, because if that's how they feel, then obviously they need to be at that altar call. But it's like, how can you sit here and lack self-esteem when you've been sitting under this kind of ministry for so long? And then of course, I know one of the problems is self-talk. We talk about how it's either God, is it Satan, or is it me? But I would submit that I think in a lot of cases, we've already bound Satan. We fired him from his job, but we've done a very good job of filling in and having a lot of negative self-talk with ourselves. And then with that negative self-talk, we eventually project that onto other people.
Well, okay, so let's add to that, because you said you think we've bound Satan and we've taken over his job. But if someone is sitting under the word and they're getting freed from whatever it is that they were thinking negatively about themselves, the moment the enemy sees them getting free, then he has to come back in and remind them of who they're not. So he's not being fired. If that word is really doing what it's supposed to, and it does, because the word is sharp and it's alive and it's quick and it does all of that, then you have to know that we have to constantly pay attention to our self-talk.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say then is, sometimes we're just repeating what he said.
Yes, you could be getting free, but say something happens situationally, or all of the good things that you've been saying, you're not seeing the fruit of that yet. It's taking too long. The process is taking too long.
So what you say to yourself, Betty?
Oh man, I'm not as sharp as I thought I was. I'm not as smart as I thought I was. Maybe I really can't do this. Maybe I really shouldn't go there. And that's the enemy. Remember, this is too much for you. This is too much stress. You can't take on all of these projects at once. So what are you saying to yourself? Because here's another scripture. We talk about it a lot in Bible study. Death and life is in the power of the tongue. So we understand that concept, but then the question becomes, what are we saying to ourselves? And what are we rehearsing? So you say it and you rehearse it. And eventually you believe it, because it dictates what you then do or don't do as a result of what it is that you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Because we know this too. We want to take our mountains on us. We can have what we say, and what we are saying actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes,
absolutely. It really does.
Absolutely.
So, go ahead.
And then, what happens to that when what you're saying becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy? Then you don't understand why it is that things don't work out for you. Because what you fail to realize is those words you speak are life. They begin to do the things that you've actually sent them to do. So if you are sabotaging yourself, those words are waiting to perform the very thing, because God has given us that kind of power with our mouths. Life and death are truly in the power of the tongue. So what are you saying? What are you rehearsing? And if you don't stop it, for one, or you don't pull those words back, cancel whatever it is that you've sent them to do in the first place, realize, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. I need to renounce that. I need to pull that back. I need to ask God to forgive me and change the trajectory of the things I've set in motion. If you don't do those things, those words are still out there performing. And you have to realize the power that you have. Whether you believe it or not, you have it.
Yeah, and so really what we're really trying to get at is, these are the kind of scriptures that we often talk about, but a lot of times we just really focus on how we use these scriptures as it relates to other people. But with the purpose of our book becoming a leader of impact from the inside out. First, you have to look at how these scriptures apply to you.
Right.
And I think a lot of times as Christians, we don't really, especially with these mouth scriptures, we don't really look at how we apply our own mouths to ourselves. And that's one of the things that we want you to focus on, because you must first start there. How do I apply these scriptures to myself? What am I saying to myself? And then I can look at how I apply these to other people. But we got to be careful, because as leaders, we have to first lead ourselves.
Yep, that's the personal leadership that we talk about.
Most of us, and of course, you have the family, the husband, the spousal relationship, and then we have the children. But also in addition to that, most of us are leaders in organizations as well. And I'm going to tell you, when it comes to the mouth, one of the best examples of leadership I actually heard about, I didn't see it, but I heard about it, but it made much sense to me. It's a sports example. And of course, I'm not a New York Giants fan. I was a Washington Redskins fan. Well, actually, I was a Baltimore Colts fan growing up. Then my team broke my heart, took the Mayflower Bands to Indianapolis, and I became a Washington Redskins fan. But, I can't stay focused when I'm talking about sports.
I know.
And then, because my daddy's side of the family is from D.C. Okay, you want me to just get to the point? All right, so there's a coach by the name of Bill Parcells, and most of you may have heard of him. His nickname is the Big Tuna, very, very brash kind of guy. But he was really considered one of the greatest of all time. And now, of course, Bill Belichick, one of his disciples, is one of the greatest of all time, coaching the New England Patriots. But what was really amazing about Bill Parcells is that he won 2 Super Bowls in a 5-year period with 2 different quarterbacks. You say, okay, so what, Tony? Big deal. But here's the thing about it. As I said, he was a very brash guy. He was always known to be getting to really just knocking his players upside the head. As a matter of fact, his first quarterback, Phil Simms, would say that he would make a nice play in practice, and Coach Parcells would actually just stop in the middle of practice and just cuss him out right there in front of everybody. And as what he learned later on was that what Bill was trying to do was to keep him from getting complacent. He didn't want him resting on his own laurels and resting on his own success. So in other words, he was always challenging him to get better. And sometimes those guys would go head to head, back and forth. I mean, they would actually have, some grown man conversations, right? But Bill would always and Phil didn't understand, I'm playing well. Why is this man always riding my back? And then, but at the end of the day, they won a Super Bowl, as actually, matter of fact, Super Bowl 21. And I think it was 21, but yeah, 21. No, yes, that long ago. Yeah, 21. But Phil was his quarterback, and he got the best out of Phil. And then years later, Phil got hurt, and he had another quarterback, a guy who was on the team. Actually, he was a rookie the year they won the Super Bowl. A guy named Jeff Hostetler. But what Bill Parcells was wise enough to do was he knew he couldn't cuss Jeff out. He knew that if he cussed Jeff out like he cussed out Phil, he would fold up like a piece of aluminum foil, and he wouldn't respond to that kind of language. And the thing that was really amazing to me is because what he could have done is said, look, this is a formula, this is a recipe that works. As a matter of fact, you've seen it work, and you need to adapt to that. But he was wise enough to know that if I want to get the best out of this guy for us to achieve our goals, I can't deal with him the same way. In other words, this brash man had to tame his own tongue to actually benefit somebody else. And so when I think about it from a marriage perspective, I think one of the things that we need to do is to look at our spouses. Like you with me with you, and for those of you who are out there married, you as you're looking at how you deal with your spouse, you need to really investigate, who am I dealing with, and what kind of language does he or she respond to? And
you're only going to learn that by building a relationship with your spouse. And it's unfortunate that once the courting phase stops, and for the younger generations that may be watching, once the dating phase stops, because you may not use the word courting.
So the courting and dating in marriage?
Yes.
Well,
yes.
It should never stop, though.
Okay, well, that's another topic.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yes, but it does, because once the man gets the woman, then the hunt stops. You've captured the kill, you've succeeded, and so now
my belt.
You settle in. So I got the girl. Get
Arm
the girl.
Candy.
Right.
Make me look good when we go out.
Right. So when you were dating, then you spent a lot of time trying to figure out what she liked. The woman, you tried to dress to make sure he would like the way you look. You both made sure you always smell good. When you were together, that was the most important person in the room. You gazed into each other's eyes and all of those things. You talked into the midnight hours, just maybe about something or maybe nothing.
And you said as you talked, and you always careful with your words, because you try to avoid those arguments because you wanted them to feel a certain way about you.
Right.
You were very careful with your words.
Right. But then what happens? You get married and life starts. And now you have children, you have bills, and you are working. and you have different priorities and different demands, and all of those things dictate now how it is that you relate to one another. And you stop learning each other. You stop figuring out what kind of things make your spouse happy, or you stop trying to figure out ways to do things to impress them. And you stop using words that encourage and uplift and support your spouse. And when you do that and you just settle into doing and saying things the way you always do, then you'll use words that are hurtful. In fact, you'll use them purposefully because you know that they will hurt your spouse.
And you know what, Nicole, because you're really big on this, and then even in the book we talked about how actions are louder than words. You know, we say that, we quote that, but yet but words are so important. Words can actually really cause a whole lot more damage. Want to elaborate on that a little bit? Yeah,
and from my perspective, one of the things when I learned this, especially in the Bible, about the power of our words. Whenever I'm thinking about something that I'm going to say, especially if I'm upset, I make sure, and this is an intentional thought, that I am not allowing my emotions to dictate what I say, because I think beyond that moment. If I say this, it's almost like I look to the future. If I say this, this is going to impact everything else that we do, because these words are alive. I can apologize for what I've said, but the words will continue to reverberate in the ears and in the mind of the person that I say whatever it is. So no matter how upset I am, how disappointed I am, I'm very careful that, first of all, the words are just about the situation, and that I don't attach them to the person. Because if I make the words about the person, then that makes the person begin to feel bad about who they are, especially when it comes to your children. That is specifically an area where you have to be careful the words you're using to mold and to shape your child, even when they're doing something that you disapprove of. You have to just disapprove of the act. I'm disappointed that you lied to me, as opposed to calling your child a liar. When you do those kind of things and you brand the person, then those are the words that they carry around. And so, as we said earlier, they become self-fulfilling. So I'm always thoughtful about the words that I use, thinking about what will happen down the line. And so I make sure that I don't use any words that I will regret. Any words that I will have to apologize for when I'm using them to tag or to brand the person that I'm talking to.
Yeah, and that's so important, because the words you use can actually cause so much damage that your subsequent words will actually have no weight. And so when you come back and try to say, well, I'm sorry, or I really didn't mean it that way, you may even be sincere in your apology. But when I'm looking at you, you may say, you know what, I don't care. Now I don't even care what you have to say. So that person who used those words that were so powerful to damage you, now you're like, you just totally dismiss them. And if you think about it, and we're talking about it from a husband and wife perspective, but even in a corporation, I mean, how many people have actually worked for someone, and now you have a project that needs to be done, you have a goal that needs to be met, a deadline, whatever the case may be, and now people just tuning that person out. They don't even care. So teamwork makes a dream work. You do all these rhymes and all that other kind of stuff, and people say, I just don't give a rip. You see it in organizations, you see it in churches, you see it on teams, you see it in agencies. It's across the board. And unfortunately, that same mindset could even creep its way into the home as well, husband and wife. But you talked about the children. How many times?
Wait, you all over the place. I can't keep up. I can't keep up with my thoughts.
Okay.
If you just keep
Well, where do you want to put the pen?
Well, let me just say this before you go back to the kids, because you were in marriage and then you went to the organization and now we're at the kids. But let me say this first
because we only had 30 minutes. I'm trying to get it all.
I know.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
But it's two of us.
Okay, go ahead. All right, go ahead.
So there's a scripture, and I think this goes to what you were saying when the person now is tuning you out, because you've said such damaging words that now those are the only words I hear. When you come back and try to say something nice and flowery, you ask for forgiveness.
Forget you.
Right.
I don't want to hear that.
Well, there's a scripture that says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if you realize you are the kind of person that you're always saying something mean, or you're always saying something that you need to apologize for, first of all, we know that your self-talk is toxic and negative and damaging to you, because there's no self-love. If you're talking to yourself like that, you can't love yourself, or you don't believe what the word says about who you are. So if you don't love yourself, it's going to be very difficult for you to love somebody else.
Practically impossible.
And that critical spirit that you have for yourself is now also going to be used
projected.
to speak
It's going to be projected on others.
Negative words on the other person. And what that's really about is the condition of your heart. So the word of God has not been able to get down in your heart to really wash, change, renew, and help you to think and to speak the words of life and the words that are in the Bible. So if out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, then those words that we're saying, if they're negative, you really need to think about what is in my heart.
Right. I know we actually have another topic here about practice guarding your heart. But for those who may be listening now and they may say, you know what, that is me. I have a tough time guarding my heart. I don't really know what's in my heart, but I do know this. I'm always in strife, or people say things, or they say that I've said things in a way that I didn't really mean to say it, but yet I consistently do it. What would you say to that person? So you put a pin there, and I'm going to put a pin in what you was saying about what's in your heart, out of the abundance of the heart.
What would you say? What would I say to the person that's constantly having those kind of difficulties?
Yes.
Well, you need help, first of all. I mean, and we struggle with that. First of all, admitting that we need help, and then actually going and getting the help. And there are a number of ways that you can get the help. First of all, if you don't have our book, you can start there.
That's a good place to start.
Because the questions are very thought-provoking, and they're challenging. And so just to go through the book with this honest self-reflection, you can come away a better person just from that.
Absolutely.
The other thing is your network, your associations. Who are you hanging around? What kind of friends do you have? Are you connected to people who are going where you want to go, who think and speak the way you should be?
Yeah, how do they talk?
Then you should be around those kind of people, because they will help you with that. Because sometimes it's hard to right yourself, when you've been doing it wrong so long, especially if you don't have a blueprint or instructions on how to do that. And then, of course, if it's much deeper than that, you can always get help with counseling, seeing and speaking to somebody, whether it's your pastor or actually
leadership, people in leadership.
A counselor. A professional counselor.
Okay,
If you're not a part of a church, then that's another avenue that you need to take, because it's important to change what you say. That's important. You have to change. If you want to change what you have and change where you're going, you have to change what you say. You
got to change what you say. And as we started off earlier, for those of you who may have just joined in, it starts with how you talk to yourself. You got to be I want to drill this home. I know I'm being repetitive, but you got to be
talk about parenting some more.
Yeah, you got to be cognizant of what you say to yourself. And really, when you see yourself saying negative things to yourself, just stop it. Like I said, sometimes, you're getting counsel from Satan. I think did we talk about that already? Yeah, we did. Maybe we did, but I think sometimes we get so spiritual with it, and we forget to take the practical measures to actually reverse the action. And that's what I'm getting at there. But with parenting, you want to be careful with your words, because you can actually create an environment where the people that you're trying to lead and trying to help and trying to guide, we talk about parenting is really your first ministry. Those are your disciples, right? And you need to lead those guys in the way that they should go. But it's going to be practically impossible if you use your words to damage the relationship, and now that they've tuned you out. And even before parenting, because within marriage, right, you be married and then you have children. Within marriage, there's a unity there. You guys will be functioning as one, one in the spirit, become one flesh. But there's no way you can become one flesh if you're tuning the other one out, because I don't care what you have to say. Right. As a matter of fact, shove it, or what else? I don't know. That's real. Forget you. I don't
get out of here.
Yeah.
Man.
I don't know. What are some things people say when they tune people out?
I don't know. But anyway, So when it comes to parenting, and it goes back to your sports analogy, you got to know the temperaments of your children. You cannot treat them all the same. And every child is not going to respond to words that may be negative or mean. Maybe one of your children does like to be talked to like you're a coach, like they're on a sporting team, like they play football or basketball or wrestling or golf or whatever. I don't know, some sport. And they like to be talked to like that. Other ones, they need a more nurturing tone, and they need you to point out the good that they've done as opposed to focusing on the bad. And all of it needs to be done with love, and you need to explain why it is that you're even saying whatever it is you're saying to correct whatever it is you're correcting, so that they understand that you come from a position of care for their benefit and for their good, and not out of anger, frustration, and disappointment. Because first of all, our children never want to disappoint us,
right?
Unless we don't have a good relationship and they don't care about what we think. Then that's another situation.
And that's probably because of our words.
And that's probably because of our words and our actions.
Yeah.
Or our missing actions.
Yeah.
It could be
our
any
inaction.
of those, our inaction.
Lack of
so
action.
Right, it could be any of those things. But for your children, you've got to understand what motivates them and use those things in how it is that you drive them or influence them. But it's all in the precision, the calculation, the intentional calculation of the type of words you use to get the best out of them. And so all of these areas in our lives, we manifest what we have based on how it is that we treat these relationships. And the treatment is through your words. So as a leader first of yourself, how it is that you self-talk, how it is that you talk to your spouse, your children, those that you may lead in an organization, a ministry, a community group, a network. If you're not getting the results you would like,
check your words. You've got to check your words. But babe, you talked about sometimes you may have a child who may like for you to talk to them like a coach, and it brought me to this. Even with this topic, what I would want to caution the men about is don't get overly sensitive either, because because a lot of us, we play sports and the coaches cussed us out, and we've been so encouraged. And as a matter of fact, the more you cuss me out, the more I just want to perform, just like Phil Simms was with the Giants. But yet our wives come to us with the smallest little thing, and all of a sudden now you're a nag, and now all of a sudden we're discouraged, And it's like, but we can take the cussing out from this person over here, but our wife can ask us a little simple question like, how are we going to send the kids to college? And then all of a sudden you're a nag, don't talk to me that way, or you come with a concern. And it really could just be about safety. And we want to say, hey, don't talk to me that way, be careful with your words. But the reality is, no, she just wants a question and answer. So even be careful with taking that truth to the extreme, especially with men. Don't get into Christianity and become all sensitive and soft because you can't take anything now, because, we tell you to be careful with your words. Right.
And if self-analysis is hard for you right now, work on feedback, asking those that you love, whether it's your spouse or your children, what is it that I say that rubs you the wrong way? Or how is it that we communicate that you think could be better? Then you can get the information from them, take that into consideration, and then make the changes that you need to from there. So sometimes we don't know how to see ourselves because of the blind spots. Or it's very difficult to think that there's actually something that we don't do quite right.
Oh, no, I do everything quite right.
Exactly. Then you rely on those around you to help you see yourself. And man up and woman up and be able to take it. It won't hurt you. It's only to make you better.
Yeah, and just be honest. Because
be honest and be open. Be open and be honest.
Because one of the things that I think we love, the whole concept of how God created the world, right? And most of you may have heard this before, but for those of you who didn't, in Genesis, we see that in the beginning, when he created the world, it said, and God said, God said, God said, God said. And the reality is he created the world with his words. And now you got to look at your world and know that you're going to create your world with your words. So that's why you need to be very cognizant of that and be careful in all areas. First with yourself.
Yes.
Your wife or your spouse, your children, and then in the workplace. Be careful in all those areas. But remember, it starts with yourself, because the better you talk to yourself, the more confident you're going to feel. And that's going to be projecting on others. If you're toxic, then that's going to be projecting on others. Start with yourself.
That's right.
Okay.
That was good. Huh?
Yeah, I think so. Now we're going to wrap this up.
Okay.
Because we struggle with this 30 minutes thing, but now we're going to go ahead and cut it right here.
Especially if you keep talking. All right. So
I was looking for a comeback, but I was struggling. So just go ahead and close it out.
So that concludes our time together this week. We are not sure yet if we'll be on next week. We'll be out of town. And it's kind of up in the air how we're going to try to do that. We are thinking about it. So just be ready to tune in if we're able to do it. And if not, we'll come back and hit it strong the following week. For the videos that we've done in the past, if you've not seen them, we ask that you go. You can look at them on our Facebook page or YouTube. We now have a YouTube page. Just look our names up, I guess. Marriage Talk, Parenting Talk,
But on the Facebook
Leadership
page
Talk.
is Empower to Engage.
And the Facebook page, yes, Empower to Engage. Our website is Empower to Engage. You can get more information about us there. Our books are there. If you want an autographed copy, you can buy them there, or you can go to Amazon. And other than that, I think that concludes our time.
That's it.
Okay, so thank you.
See you soon.
All right.
All right, good night.